My kids are going to be shocked when they become adults and learn that I've basically been playing a character for their entire lives. All day, I have to pretend like I care about everything. When I'm a laid-back guy, I could actually care less if they made their beds or if they scratched the walls, but my character has expectations. He says what he means and does what he says. My character hates video games. He barely allows them in the house, and he'll banish them immediately when rules are broken. But actually, I play Mario Kart all the time when they're at school. Last week, my character got really upset. He threatened to throw away candy if the kids didn't stop wrestling. When the wrestling continued, he was forced to follow through. I thought it was a safe move. It had been so long since Halloween, and I was sure there'd be nothing good left. Maybe just some chalky wafer things. But the kid was saving the best stuff for last. I mean, it was brutal. Full-size candy bars. I didn't want to do it, but my character had to keep his word. Then later, I fished them out of the trash and ate them all.
My childhood was dominated by her stories. Living in the ghetto for 2 years, surviving off potato peels, running like an animal from the Nazis. Her entire family was killed. I have no grandparents, no aunts or uncles. She was the only one who survived. We rose up from the ashes, and my mother became a monster. She deprived us like she was deprived. My brother and I were always made to feel like a burden, like we were leeching from her. There were no special occasions, no birthdays, no cakes. Everything was counted. Everything was calculated. Whenever I asked for something, I was made to feel responsible for World War II. She'd say, "I didn't survive Hitler to get you this bag of potato chips." She never let me feel like we were in America. Some days I felt like I was the one wearing stripes. I've dreamed about Hitler since I was a child. He tells me that I'm a mistake and that I should have been killed. I remember when I grew older and I started visiting the houses of friends. I saw how their parents treated them, how they were given gifts and how they were loved. It felt like I was crawling out of the gutter after the war and learning that the entire time some people were living normal lives. My mother died on July 6th, 2005. One day toward the end of her life, we were on the subway carrying heavy packages, and I could see she was exhausted. And she turned to me and said, "A ganze Leben is a schlep," which means all of life is a schlep. And for a moment, I could feel her pain. And I realized I could still love her. She couldn't love me, but I could love her. Despite all the abuse she had given me, I could feel her pain. I resurrected this old photo after she died. She was with her first husband. It was weeks before he was taken away. who's 20 years old in this picture. That gorgeous face. Got that youth. I mean, how could I possibly hate her in the same way? It is unfathomable. And not that she had the right to be cruel, but it is unfathomable what she went through. I once helped her type a memoir to get reparations from the Germans, and at the end of her story, she wrote, "It was a life of horror. Having lost everything and everyone, I had given up my struggle to live. And at that time, it would have been easier if they would have killed me. But they didn't. So, I went on, living in hell."
It's our anniversary today. We always talk about how lucky we are to have found our person. I wasn't even supposed to go to the bar that night. My friends and I had a golf tournament the next morning, and we wanted to get some sleep. But at the last minute, we decided to grab a quick drink. My buddies were doing their thing, and so I took a quick lap around the bar. And I noticed this one girl that was just glowing. She was probably sitting right under one of the bar lights. But I just had to go for it. I walked right up to her and I said something like, "I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself to you." After that, I was grasping at straws. I kept trying to find a common denominator, but the best I could do was, she's in the same sorority as my friend's cousin. We talked for the next 15 minutes. And the bar was so loud that we actually had to lean in to talk to each other. We actually touched cheeks at one point. My buddies are going to tear me apart for this one, but I just remember thinking that she had the softest face. I gave her my number after that, and I didn't really expect to hear from her. But she told her mom the story, and her mom said, "Give him a call. You don't have to marry him."
Well, she was proud. She seemed detached. She wasn't really looking for boys. I later learned that she acted the way she did was because of everything she'd been through. You know, her parents abandoned her when she was born. She lived in several group homes. And that's why she always seemed so cold. But once I got to know her, I mean, she changed completely. She was funny, she was sensitive. Small things touched her. One time we were on the beach and these two seagulls were fighting each other. One was getting the better of the other, and I thought it was funny. It just seemed like nature to me. But when I looked at her, she had tears in her eyes. We stayed together for a year, and things got really heavy. And she was my first love. But then I graduated and I went off to university. I had a whole new life at school. I didn't want to be in a relationship, so we lost contact. She told me there was no need to keep in touch because we had never been friends, only lovers. 3 years later, and me and my friends, we took a trip to a city in Belgium. We went there often because it was just across the border. That night we decided to walk through the red light district. At first, I didn't recognize her. She was older. She had on a lot of makeup and she was wearing lingerie. We made eye contact and she didn't seem ashamed. She seemed sad, but not ashamed. Well, I quickly looked away because I didn't want my friends to notice. That night I went back to my hotel and sobbed. I'm not sure if it was because what had happened to her, or because my initial reaction had been shamed. But I went back and I tried to make it right. I went back and I found her, and she told me her life was none of my business anymore.